Okay, good evening, everybody. It's great to see such a good turnout this evening. Welcome to our district weekly webinar, our virtual workshop series. My name is Brian Cofrancesco. I'm the Leadership Development Coordinator for the New England and Bermuda District and a member of the Kiwanis Club of Meriden. Our workshop tonight is a very exciting one. It is going to be focused on strategic planning for clubs, which is a very relevant and useful topic. Before we get to that, a couple bits of information for you. Some of you have been joining us for the duration of our virtual workshop series, and we really appreciate you being here with us. This is the 25th session in our virtual workshop series, going back to December. So thank you to all of you who've been here with us and supporting this endeavor. We hope that you'll continue to join us and encourage your members to do so this month as we continue up until July, every Wednesday at 7 o'clock here on Zoom. If any of your members or you are not receiving our emails, you can contact our education committee and we will take a look to make sure that you are receiving them. And right now I'll drop two links in the chat for you. And one will be a link to our email address if you'd like to let us know. And the other one will be to register for our June workshops if you haven't done so already. A reminder to all of you who are in attendance that our workshops do have the potential to count as interclub credit on your monthly secretary reports. So if you have enough members attending tonight, you will get to report an interclub with every single club that's in attendance. So to help us determine the number of interclubs that we can all report, we ask you to please introduce yourselves in the chat. Just send a quick message with your name and your club, and our interclub liaison, David Griffin, will take attendance. If you would like to share with your club secretary that you can report interclubs, you can do one of three things. First, you can write down the names of the clubs in attendance as you see them appear in the chat. Or you can click the ... ellipses in the chat to save the chat, and it'll download afterwards so you can review the clubs that are in attendance. Or if you'd prefer, if you go to this morning's confirmation email, you'll see a link to our Google Drive of resources where you can find a list of all the clubs who were represented at each of our weekly sessions. Before we get started, a couple housekeeping points. Please be sure to keep yourself muted this evening to ensure an uninterrupted presentation. We do invite you to keep your camera on. It's always nice to see everybody's faces when we get together, but it's not required if you prefer to keep your camera off. For optimal viewing, we recommend changing your Zoom view to speaker view, and you can do that in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. If it says gallery, you'll want to just change it to speaker view. Oops, and I see we're having problems with the chat. There we go, everybody. Sorry about that. You should be able to send your attendance again. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, Bob. If you have questions for our presenter tonight, you can post them in the chat. And if you're watching on Facebook, please comment on the live stream and we'll grab your questions for our Q&A at the end from the stream. Tonight's session will be about an hour, and afterwards you'll be able to find recordings of the workshop on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel. So with that, we are ready to get started. We all hopefully had our annual meetings in the last few weeks to elect our new officers. And as we look towards the new Kiwanis year on October 1st, many of us may see changes in our club leadership. And whether those of you with us tonight are past or current or even future club leaders, you likely know the pressure to reinvent your club and do things differently at the start of your new year. Oops. Maybe somebody, there we go. Sorry about that, we had somebody unmuted. But you know the pressure that can come with the start of a year. And sometimes no matter how hard you work, progress can be slow. But rest assured, you are not alone in this feeling, as you'll learn tonight. You will learn how to enhance your club's value proposition and impacting your community by developing a strategic plan and an execution framework. Our presenter tonight is Joseph Lepper, who's the president of the Kiwanis Club of Springfield, Massachusetts, as well as a past international president of Key Club. Joe has lots and lots of extensive knowledge and experience in project management, strategy, community impact, goal setting, marketing, evaluation, you name it. And that spans both his professional life and his Kiwanis life. I've known Joe for probably close to, I think, maybe 15 years since our days in Key Club. He's a really dynamic presenter, very knowledgeable, and you're really in for a treat tonight as we go through this timely and very relevant session for our Kiwanis clubs. So with that, please join me in welcoming our presenter this evening, Joe Lepper.
Great. Thank you very much, Brian, for the wonderful introduction. It's great to see so many faces out here from various Kiwanis clubs across the district and beyond. Got a great session queued up today. So let's get rocking and rolling, shall we? Bear with me one moment. I'm going to pull up my screen. Okay. All right, here we go. So again, thank you very much for joining this session today. We're going to be focused on strategy and execution and finding ways to bridge the two. So before we get started, just to tell you, there's really not much else for me to say, actually, because Brian did a pretty good job. I've been in the Kiwanis family for almost 20 years now, going back to my freshman year of high school, which seems really crazy to say. And, as Brian mentioned, I've had some great opportunities in service in youth leadership as a former district governor and international president of Key Club. I'm currently rounding second base on my second term as Kiwanis Club president here at Springfield, the sponsoring club that sponsored me back when I was in Key Club. And, lastly, community impact and this type of work isn't just my passion, it's also my job. I've been working in corporate responsibility for the last 5 years, and it's really been a terrific opportunity. And I hope to kind of give perspectives of both working in corporate responsibility and looking through that lens, as well as from the volunteer side. So anyways, enough about me. Let's talk about you. Would like folks to think a moment and get their keyboards ready for just a minute, because we're a little bit tight on time. You've heard what the topic is. We're talking about strategy and execution. Is there anything that is coming that is more pressing than others? Would love for folks to just throw a couple things in the chat really quick. I've got a few sections of this presentation already planned out, but this will help me kind of be a little bit more informed as to where I can best be focusing my efforts on. So go ahead, type some stuff there in the chat. I'll take a look, whether it's on strategy generally, if it's on developing a framework, if it's on the execution side, other stuff. So go ahead and type a couple things there in the chat if you don't mind, and just take a quick minute on that. And I'm trying to share my screen while looking at the chat. I think it's my first time on Zoom today. Here we go. All right, we got a little bit of talk here. All right, so timeline, horizon for planning, learning more about how to plan and formulate those. Let's just go ahead and get running with that, and we'll save some time later at the end if there are other things that come up. So let's go over the agenda today. We're going to start talking about strategy, generally speaking. From there, we'll delve into the concept of a strategic framework and some tools and templates that may be helpful to bring back to your boards and to your clubs. And since execution eats strategy for lunch, or in maybe tonight's case, dinner, I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about how clubs can avoid some of the pitfalls that might be distracting from your strategic efforts when it comes to planning. And then again, we'll save time for Q&A at the end, and that will be a wrap. Sorry, I just noticed that chat was right in front of the screen the whole time I was presenting there. All right, so thank you all for those comments. Okay. So the topic of strategy can get kind of messy with a lot of jargony terms. So I just wanted to level set on some common language that we'll be discussing today. But please, nobody tell me that the arrows are not aligned, because I get really OCD about slides and I'm not the best at it. So in my view, you can't really talk about strategy and making a plan if you're not able to effectively articulate that true north, your vision, your mission, what it is that you're trying to achieve. You can't also really expect to realize the results of your strategy if you're not talking about the projects and programs that you're implementing to reach that North Star. What's just as important is having that intentional and viable approach or methodology, if you will, in doing so. So strategy is really the how to get to our why and what. So it really kind of makes sense to see strategy here in the middle, with those other facets that we just spoke about a moment ago on either side. So what is strategy? Strategy is really about providing that unifying theme that brings it all together. It's, it involves many things, whether it's setting priorities, thinking about the approach, the direction, and the tactics that you will take to ultimately achieve your goals. But ultimately, as many of you know, resources are hard. It's hard to come by a lot of Kiwanians. Our clubs are not as big as they used to be. We have a lot of wheels in the air right now. So we have to think about strategically aligning resources so that we're able to take on this additional burden, or not burden, but effort in planning to try to set ourselves apart. And as Brian mentioned earlier, the club administrations turn over every year, and all too often it feels like the clubs feel like they're starting from scratch. So really the aim, in my view, is for clubs to start thinking, within the next 3 to 5 years, to try to put some stakes in the ground, engaging board members, engaging club members, former members that you're still in touch with that might not just be so able to be involved anymore, and leveraging those points of view to give you that true North Star, something that you can stick to. So that's what we're hoping to get out of today. There's a lot of different facets of strategy. I think analysis is really important because that helps you see what is going on around you and balancing the forest and the trees. And as a leader of Kiwanis, you have to be thinking about what's in front of you when your boots are on the ground, making sure that the day-to-day is going and you're going in that right direction. But being able to know at the high level of the forest about what direction you're going in is critically important. So making sure that you're able to get that information. And not to go line by line or anything here, but mobilization is really key. When you're thinking about your strategy and you're talking about your strategy, you want to be inspired. You want to be motivated. You want to be driven and focused because you can't do it alone. We'll talk about this in a few of the upcoming slides, but having the buy-in and having the engagement of your members and your board members is going to be critical, because you can have the best, prettiest strategic plan with, all the bells and whistles, but you've got to have the buy-in among the folks who are going to roll up their sleeves and do the work. So I'm not sure if anyone has ever heard the famous TEDx talk from Simon Sinek, but he talks about people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So we'll take a play on that and relate it to our work as Kiwanians. And, people don't always care what you do, they care why you do it. And that's stuff that we need to be talking about more as Kiwanians if we're hoping to bring more volunteers in support of our mission to serving children. So, driving awareness of what we do, engaging in recruiting new volunteers, new members, new sponsors. So, everybody knows their what, whether it's your club or yourself. What are the things that you do? Your how is important because that's what makes you unique, and how you go about it. But your why, not a lot of clubs and a lot of boards, and at least from our view, are we speaking the same language? Are we talking the same thing? Leading with our purpose and not just talking about our programs, our project. Talk about our why. What is our purpose? That's our authentic value and role to society. That allows us to simultaneously grow, not just as a club, but personally or professionally, and also make a positive difference in the community along the way. Just to kind of pull from my day job and thinking about corporate responsibility in the business world, Edelman and all these other authorities on brand trust talk so much about how people and businesses and nonprofit organizations that embrace their purpose, they outperform their peers. And the better we can start talking about our purpose, the more often we can be talking about it, the better. So not to say that we're in a competition with Rotary or Civitan or whatever. We're competing with people's time and attention in a wildly different world amid COVID and technology, et cetera. So, if you can't articulate that why and you're not articulating that story, it's hard to say that we're going to be on the super highway to success. So the next couple slides we're going to go through, we're going to talk about some examples of or strategic framework elements and some resource guides that I'll make sure that are available to you, talking about mission, your vision, and your theory of change. So talking about mission statements for a moment, I think it's fair to say that many of us on this are aware that Kiwanis International has a mission, a vision, a motto. But, have you thought about what your club's mission is? What is that unique value proposition that you're telling? Are you all on the same page in telling that story? So this is a working template here that you can leverage in a number of different ways, whether it be for your club, it can be for a program or strategic initiative. And going through this process can really help solidify your business case of why you're doing something, who is affected and how. And, don't reinvent the wheel here. There's plenty of other resources available on ki.org. They have club workshops and planning guides similar to this, but it doesn't need to be super complicated. It's 3 steps of brainstorming, and then it takes the work of putting some stuff together and see what sticks. All right, let's piggyback off that section for a moment and shift to vision statements. I would ask if anybody here has ever heard of the New York Times concept before, but I'm not looking at all your faces right now, and clearly everybody's on mute. But essentially, it's pretty simple. Think about what the story would be 10 years from now if your Kiwanis Club was on the cover of the New York Times front page. And this is an envisioning tool here. So the first part of the activity is drafting a headline and a byline. So I've included some language here that I thought might help you get thinking. Kiwanis paves the way to stronger communities, no matter what the zip code. And then how the Kiwanis mission inspired a new generation of community and business leaders. So again, what do you want that story to say? I think it's really exciting to kind of pause and be within your thoughts and think about that. I think it also would bring hopefully similar feelings to other members in your club and other board members to be thinking about the direction you're going. Step 2 is thinking about your stakeholders. You've got the headline, the byline. How do your stakeholder statements validate that? Who are they and what are they saying? So again, a few examples that I put in there from a longtime member, a corporate sponsor, club president, community member, I think was on there, but maybe my slide was too big and it cut it off. So think about these things. Think about these stakeholders as you're thinking about your mission and your vision. So after going through step 1 and 2, then you're really able to start thinking about that vision. So there's one here that we've talked about within our club. And that was really important to me personally as a 2-term president of our club is, letting every resident and student in greater Springfield, regardless of their income, age, race, gender, ability, sexual identity or orientation or age, has access to meaningful ways to connect and serve their community through the Kiwanis through the fleet of the Kiwanis vehicles of service. A little bit of a tongue twister there. But again, when you're talking with your club and you're going through, this process of trying to develop a plan, tools and templates like this might be really helpful. So what I like to do, especially in a non-COVID world, when you're meeting with your board, grab a bunch of sticky notes and some Sharpies and put some sections along the restaurant or wherever it is that you're meeting, and put a section there. Longtime member, corporate sponsor, key club member, community member. have folks sit down and write for a couple of minutes, and then have them go put their thoughts up on the wall. If you're meeting virtually still, do it as a homework assignment, have them send it in. There's a lot to be said about group brainstorming discussions, but in my experience, some of the same people are always the ones that speak up and others don't. And sometimes those conversations can be dominated without everyone really getting to meaningfully contribute. So get the feedback, talk through the responses, highlight some of those key themes, and use that as discussion points as you continue to develop your vision and other members of the strategic framework. All right, new topic alert here, folks. We're going to talk about something called the theory of change. And no, this wasn't on my smart art triangle with crooked arrows earlier. This is a really, really interesting concept because it really helps bring together your mission, your vision, and also talking about the tactics or outcomes that need to be achieved in order for you to reach your long-term goals. So as you can see from the guide here, it begins with that long-term sustainable change that you want to bring about. And from there, it essentially reverse engineers, and you get to start thinking about what you can be focusing on in the short term to get you to where you want to go. Again, I've got a few examples in here in the gray boxes just to get you thinking. But ultimately, this envisioning process and going through these steps helps you lead to this narrative, couple of sentences. In my view, this is a really great way to articulate your club's direction, whether it be with prospective members, corporate sponsors, or other community members that are interested in learning about the work that you do. So again, this could be another homework or sticky type assignment, but at the end of the day, the more people you get involved in the planning, the better. And that's going to help you get more buy-in. So I don't know if any folks were taking a read on some of the slides here, but my take on it is thinking that people need to be aware of the personal and business benefits and professional benefits that community engagement brings, and how Kiwanis is unique in the ways in which they can connect you to the community. And ultimately getting to that long-term sustainable change, people need to feel comfortable. For a lot of us, service is a habit. We're used to it. We do it because it's just ingrained in us and it's what we do. But trying to bring people in that don't have that muscle memory like many of you on this call do, we want folks to feel comfortable and inspired and feel that Kiwanis is a trusted source in order to help them further their desires of being more involved. So that's a little bit about theory of change. All right, now that we've talked about some of the strategic framework elements, mission, vision, theory of change, let's talk a little bit about what Kiwanis International has already put out there in their strategic plan. I'm not sure if anyone has seen any of this before, but KI has outlined 4 strategic priorities and corresponding objectives to each. And yes, I did say 4, but there are 5 on the screen, and I'm using this slide from some of the work that we've done here at our Springfield Club that I felt worthy to incorporate. So look, there's a lot of great meat on the bone here, and let's talk about these, whether we're focusing on membership and engagement, community impact, our image, and our financial viability. I think that those are really well summarized there, as well as the objectives that kind of wrap a bow around what that could or what that should mean. And now in the COVID and digital age, how do we reposition ourselves in this new world? I mean, everybody's been isolated for over a year, and now folks are able to get back out in person. A lot of people are questioning some of the things they used to spend their time on. If not now, when would it be a better chance for Kiwanis to remind people about the meaningful relationships and impact that they can make in serving their communities? You guys are in the driver's seats in your communities here. So this is a great opportunity for Kiwanis. And again, here I come with another homework or sticky note example of something that you can do with your club. This is something that we did with our Kiwanis Club. I think it was right after I started my first term in the fall of 2019. What we did is we took these priorities and these objectives, and we put sticky notes on the wall, and we asked members to take a few minutes and brainstorm what we should be focusing on, what has worked, what do we need to do better. And we just kind of sat and people started putting up their ideas, and we had a round table around the horn. And we weren't surprised. There were a lot of themes. There were a lot of similar things that a lot of the board was thinking and feeling. But to have it validated independently like that really seemed to kind of make our club feel closer, make our board feel more closer and united, and gave us, I think, a tighter direction as we were trying to pick the tactics and areas that we wanted to be focusing on, given what we know. All right, well, this slide is really kind of hard to see, and it's kind of to prove that Kiwanis International didn't just give us those priorities and run away. There was a lot more. So as you can see, there are a number of focus areas within the 4 domains that they identified here. But again, knowledge that's accessible for you and your club to pick and choose. If you think that this framework or some of these plans might have validity, take a look at some of the tactical things, the tactical areas that you might want to be hyper focused on as part of your strategic plan, whether it is increasing membership, developing signature projects, increasing knowledge of the mission of your work. This is a massive template for a strategic plan, massive. So I'm not saying to everybody that you have to do all this or you should be doing all of this. But really thinking about that North Star and where you're trying to go, thinking about that theory of change, and what are the things that need to be accomplished to achieve those preconditions along that theory of change. In the first year or the first 2 years, it might be one thing, it might be shifting to another. So that's really where the strategic planning comes in handy, because you're starting with the end in mind and you're reverse engineering to the steps that need to happen along the way. Another template, nothing too new here. I think folks have seen an impact effort matrix before, but again, when you're looking at those various activities or those initiatives, whether it was through any of the brainstorms or backlog of projects that you have, it can be helpful to see about where you feel that certain projects would fall. And as a board to, start moving it around, whether it's a PowerPoint slide on Zoom that you're moving a little box or a sticky note that you're moving in person, this work can be helpful in prioritizing your efforts. Also thinking that there might be some attributes to consider as part of your strategy in selecting those projects. When you look at how clear is it? How inclusive is it? How much control does the club have? Are there external dependencies that might present risks in terms of core initiatives within your strategic plan? Are you aligned? And also, what's the opportunity cost? Are you giving up on one initiative over another? And is that really the right choice to be making? Another template here, a SWOT analysis. Again, a lot of the work or brainstorming that you're doing is essentially part of the same thing, but consider this as part of developing your framework. You as leaders of these clubs need to, help be a charging force in putting a stake in the ground and making a roadmap. What are the ways that we're going to work together? If we're going to initiate a strategic plan that we're going to put a stake in the ground for the next 2, 3, or 5 years, what are the things that we need to do to help us make sure we're understanding our stakeholders, our members, our ideas, so that we can really commit and start moving forward? Another template here, something that I've used a little bit professionally, is called a logic model. I find it as a great way to do a brain dump, so to speak, on whether it be a particular goal or objective where you're starting to scope something out. And you could think about all the things that, whether it's the inputs, whether it's the time, whether it's the money, the activities, whether it's the steps, the outputs, whether it be tangible outputs or not, and what are the outcomes? What is the short-term outcome? What is the long-term outcome? So again, this is just a tool to think about among the other litany of tools that we have shared already today. All right, so we talked about these different planning elements. We talked about the importance of having a hyper-focused strategy and wanting to take an approach to drive the outcomes that we want. So a lot of pie in the sky, it sounds like, but it doesn't have to be. So I wanted to share an example with you from our Springfield Kiwanis Club in terms of an output or an outcome of some of our strategic planning. Here you can see what the objective was. It was really melding both the focus of our brand image and driving membership. And our strategy was finding a new way to position Kiwanis favorably when we have guest speakers to increase the likelihood that they might join or they might volunteer with us when we follow up and ask. So the tactic that we took in that approach was to develop a standard pitch about Kiwanis, what we do, what we stand for. So here's just a sneak peek at a couple of slides that we're now incorporating in every meeting. And it's we haven't, it's relatively new. It's something we've been doing over the last like 4 months. But we've got a lot of people that are on the hook, that are talking, that we're getting involved, that are joining other meetings. So simple stuff. We start with talking about Kiwanis International, the mission, the vision, a couple of shameless plugs of pictures of some of our activities. And we talk a little bit about our club's history. What are some of the signature programs and focus areas that we have? How do we fundraise? How do we underwrite the costs of what we do? Then we'll talk briefly about the Kiwanis family and the hundreds of thousands of volunteers in countries all over the world that are united in service in this family of Kiwanis. And then lastly, another plug, one of our signature programs here, we have $6,000 service award winners that we name every single year. So just a little plug on some of the students from last year. So that's a little bit about, talking about some of the strategic concepts and how you can think of a strategy or a particular tactic as part of your plan and to pick it up and do it. All right. So I feel like I have a 3-year-old son and we talk about activities a lot. So I felt like it made sense that today is a lot about activities with your board and with your club. But I have one more exercise that I wanted to share with you. And the focus for this was, everybody talks about wanting more members, and we need more members. We need more members. And I agree, we do need more members. Kiwanis has shifted in a big direction in the last 25 or 30 years in terms of service organization participation. The way I see it, if we can just start with trying to recruit volunteers, hey, would you maybe help us and volunteer? We could use a volunteer for this, a volunteer for that, instead of just to try to get them to go right to the application and sign up to be a member of a club that doesn't seem or sound so familiar to folks. So I wanted to show you guys an example of what we did with our club, leveraging some information here from Kiwanis International. So I don't know if anybody here has ever seen the brand book that Kiwanis International has, but there's a lot of great stuff on it there. This is a snippet of that, where they have a couple of personas. These are like the personas that Kiwanis International feels that we could best be focusing on to help grow our organization. So as you can see here, you've got the workhorse. You got their characteristics. They're between 30 and 55. What are the things that they do? What are some of the drivers that they're most interested in? And what are some of the pain points that they might have? So you can see that between the workhorses, your seasoned volunteers, and your youthful professionals. So here, they're giving us some intel, right? But what do we do with that? How do we take that to the next level? So what we did is I handed out everybody in our board a sheet where I had everybody write a list of personal connections that they could think about that fit within their personas, or people that don't, but that got them thinking. Also had people talk about their target groups. What other groups should we be looking at? Should it be certain professions? Should it be other different groups? And this was a touchy subject for some because, people would go and fill it out. But then if you ask them, why haven't you asked them to join Kiwanis already? You get that look. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard to think about, right? Like, we're so passionate about this, but the last time you ask someone to join Kiwanis is not really the most successful answer that we're hearing, or fruitful answer from our other members. So this is a way where I think you can take the time to hear what your other members are thinking. What are the barriers to get them to start being more comfortable and confident and inspired to get people to join Kiwanis? So again, that's a great opportunity to talk with folks and see what you might be able to do to help them feel more comfortable. So there's this other exercise here. This is something I used to use when I was a sales consultant developing presentations. There's a training group called the Fusion Group that has a whole battery of stuff in here. But these are really kind of two of the components I thought most useful for today. So if your part of your strategy involves recruiting members, think about what your objective is. It them to join? Is it to attend a meeting? Is it to come out and volunteer? Get down here to step 2 here with playing the devil's advocate. Think about your ask and come up with the biggest reasons why somebody would say no. The biggest reason someone would say no. I don't think that would be super hard. Take a couple of minutes, come up with 4 or 5 different things. Then on the flip side, this part takes a few more minutes, is thinking about what a concise way to overcome that objection. How do you overcome that objection in 1 sentence? And then what I would say to you is that when you're approaching folks, if you're approaching new recruits or potential volunteers or potential corporate sponsors, leverage those sentences in overcoming objections and build that into your pitch. Why? Because you're going to overcome those objections before they can even think about it or before they can stew on it any more longer than that. So really, if we're thinking about going deep and solving for some of these problems, we need to think dynamically and strategically about how we can get there. And I know that membership is a big topic, so I wanted to make sure that we brought some of those to the forefront. All right, taking a look on time, we're right on track. I've got one other topic here for you today. As we shift and pivot, I don't know if there's any people here that used to watch Friends, but I was a big fan and still tend to joke a little bit about that episode there. So I want to talk about a little bit about execution. So project management is really so key. I don't just say that as a certified project management professional, but I say that from somebody who wasn't always the best at executing, whether I was in office in Key Club or whether it was in my professional life. You can have these grand plans, but if you don't know how to plan it and execute it, it's not getting done. So I'll credit Key Club guilt to wanting to get certified and learning about these concepts to try to make myself better and more impactful in my volunteer world and in my professional world. And this is one of my favorite things. It's called a work breakdown structure. I don't know if anybody's heard of it before. I'm going to take a minute or two talking about it, but it's really, really helpful when you're talking about planning small projects or big projects that are involving a number of people that have specific requirements. So let's talk a little bit about that. So work breakdown structure really focuses on the nouns. It focuses on the outputs or the deliverables here. No verbs allowed. So as you can see here, we've got a mountain bike. All right, so I don't know if there's any mountain bikers on the line here, but I think for those familiar with bikes can agree that you got a frame, you got a crane, you've got a wheel set, you got your brakes, your shifters. And then you have this other one here that's about your integration or how you bring it all together. But the point is to develop a hierarchy. What is the hierarchy of outputs or deliverables that need to be accomplished for you to be successful? So here you can see the frame set has 4 core components. The crane set has 2. The wheel set has 3, but as you can see, that front wheel, it has a couple other examples of breaking it down further. So anytime that I plan a project or that I've been involved with projects, I really try to leverage building a work breakdown structure. You can draw it out. You can go into PowerPoint and do smart art under hierarchy, and you can type it out like an outline, and it'll come out super pretty. You can pick your colors and whatever. And that'll help you get aligned. And then you'll know exactly what work needs to be done. And then once that's aligned, you can actually start thinking about those activities. What are the steps that you need to get it done? So here, hey, I got your frame, I got to design it, create this, X, Y, and Z. So when you're thinking about service projects, initiatives, or other strategies, this is a great way for you to start planning your work rather than, building the bike while riding it. And the last thing I would say too is thinking about your definition of done. So whether you have certain things that are being handled by one or more members or committees, have some set criteria of what does it mean that we're done. Have it documented, have it be there and be transparent so that you don't need to worry about things being lost within the cracks, that you're setting expectations and you're clear as a team. Whew. So this has gone by pretty fast. We're at about quarter of. We've talked for the majority today about strategy and different strategic planning framework elements and exercises for clubs and boards to do so. So I hope that we were able to achieve some of the goals and whatnot that folks had and their hopes for signing up for this session today. So with that said, I'd love to kind of open things up for Q&A, and Brian, I'm sure, has been monitoring the chat area feverishly. So I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your evening and listening to me, and let's have a conversation now, shall we?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Joe. That was awesome. So much information you're able to pack into one session.
I hope people feel like they're drinking from a fire hose, but I mean, yeah, there was a lot of stuff in there. So thanks. It looks like not a lot of people dropped off. So that's good.
Well, we got some really great questions, and everyone seems really engaged with what you're talking about. I'm just going to jump right in. The first one that came in was, should clubs be coming up with both mission and vision statements for their own clubs, or using the Kiwanis mission and coming up with their own local vision?
Well, I think there's no running away from what the Kiwanis mission and vision is, but I think that for clubs to take the time and thinking about what they're doing, what it is that they do with their mission and what they're trying to achieve with their vision can help you create that personal value proposition of your club. Anybody can say, yes, we're focused on children and making the world a better place and X, Y, and Z, but what does that mean in your community? Those exercises can help you refine that value proposition that's on your website, that's on your social media, that you're talking with other members and sponsors about when you're fundraising. So that would be my advice, to not think it's one or the other, but find the best of the two that's going to help you achieve your goal.
Awesome. That was a really good answer. This next one, I'm sure some people might be feeling this one. I love the post-it idea. but I'm worried my club board won't be on board, if you will, with this type of creative thinking. Any tips for bringing board members along and getting them excited about the process?
Sheesh. Well, I think I think you have to recognize your own self-awareness in those moments, and having a healthy dose of skepticism, of knowing who might say something or who might not, and trying to give them a little bit of encouragement, or try to be, Tom, Tom, really looking forward to hear what you have to say on this. We'd really love to hear from you there. Also, if you have a couple other board members that that you might want to talk about this in advance of the meeting, to say, look, we could use some positivity, don't make it just be me trying to rally the troops here. But at the end of the day, you're not in control of how other people think or react. So don't take it personally. If you only have a couple of Post-its up there, so be it. You're trying to have a collaborative mindset, a collaborative framework. And unfortunately, not every board is always going to be built for that, but you got to try.
Love your answer. And I just want to tack on to that, because I know, Joe, you and I have talked about this several times. When I was president, I did the same thing, trying to do these creative visioning and strategic ideas. And sometimes at board meetings, board members you'd hear the audible groan as that week's activity was brought up. But by the end of the year, everyone seemed to really appreciate that opportunity to talk openly. And I love the example you shared when you were talking about how a lot of everyone's concerns that they were all feeling were validated as they came up in conversation. I think that's one of the best outcomes of this, as you bring people along, is everyone may realize that you're all thinking very similar things. You maybe just haven't reiterated or iterated them out loud.
Yeah, and let me play catch with you there, Brian. I just want to jump in on something else. And this is something I've learned from one of my mentors here in my Springfield club, who, has given me a ton of feedback and stuff along the way. It's like, Joe, we were talking about this cornhole tournament, right? We've had this cornhole tournament for 9 or 10 years, and I was going to be chairing it for the first time before I became president, and had these ideas for all this new other stuff. And Lee says to me, he's like, Joe, you got some good ideas there. Keep some of them in your back pocket. Let it be out there. Don't go out there and run out your whole plan and put it on a platter and be like, hey, here it is. Because then what else, if it's really good or there's a lot of stuff there, what are people able to contribute to that? And are they going to have as much buy-in? So, you know where you're trying to go. You don't always need to try to go lead and prove it to everyone. But find ways to get people involved and have that buy-in. So just passing along the knowledge of a mentor that's been a great Kiwani in our club.
That's really, really great advice. Let's see. Okay, so this kind of plays into your last point. You've mentioned so many really great tools. Where do you recommend that club start? What's a good initial activity?
Geez. Well, I think it kind of depends on where you would take an honest assessment of your club, like where your biggest gaps are. I think some clubs today are struggling with keeping the lights on with current projects that they have or commitments that they make that are out there. And that's really hard to be thinking about strategy and all this stuff when you feel like things are falling through the cracks. So if that's the case, I might think about focusing on your methodology and your approach to planning and executing your projects, whether it's, who schedules meetings, who sends out the notes, maybe thinking about a work breakdown structure, a shared document in Google, something that lays out those expectations. If you think that there's risks out there, I would try to focus there if you can. If things are looking good and your club is ready to go, I would start thinking, hey, we want to set ourselves up for success in the next few years. Where is it that we're trying to go? So I would say that your visioning statement might be a little bit more applicable than the mission statement. That theory of change might also be something to try, because it's not part of the Kiwanis framework. And that can be really a teaser, and you can spend a lot of time with that. So that's my thought. But again, that you might need to have people a little bit more engaged that are willing to roll up their sleeves a bit and actually say something and actually give feedback, right? The easier one, I would say, would be based on what I did with our club, which was, here's the Kiwanis strategic plan. Here are the 4 different areas. What could we be doing better? What's not working? And just let people throw it on the board. And because it's on the board, they're doing something, they're participating, they're talking. Getting them involved can help them build up to those next steps. And, think about that of the trajectory of trajectory of engagement with your members and with your club. So I guess I kind of punted and gave you 3 answers, but that's a few different ways to think about it.
Those are all really great answers. 3 is always better than 1, right? So next question is, it makes sense that our local club's strategy and goals align with the district and international. Do the New England and Bermuda District and Kiwanis International provide local clubs with their high-level annual strategies and objectives?
Well, putting my Kiwanis Club president hat on, I don't know of any specific communications that I've received that are specific about that. I think they try to promote what's out there, and they've got a lot of great staff that work on a lot of those resources. Like, I remember when I pulled the strategic plan and I pulled the persona document that had all that stuff, like that's good stuff there. Use it, try to pull from it. So I don't know if what Kiwanis is saying. I know we get communications from the district that are talking about activities regularly. Every division is different. Every lieutenant governor is different, and some clubs just want to go be on the island of themselves, and so be it. But you got to be, I guess it's just a matter of what are you hearing from others, and how proactive are you willing to be, and how much time are you willing to dive in and sort through and find the cream of the crop.
Should clubs have a final product after they plan, a printed plan or a document? I know you talked a little bit about the execution plans. I think this is getting more at like the strategic plan, or after you've done all that visioning and mission work.
Yeah. I don't know if I disappointed everybody that I didn't show a template of the strategic plan today, right? Because there's so many different ways that you can go with that. I mean, we have something that is basic that talks about our priorities and some of the tactics that we do, but it's what makes sense for our club. I think if you go through this process and you're going through those planning, your board and your club, they're going to pick out what is important. What do we want to say? What can we put on one page and have that be our strategic plan? Or what are the milestones that are along the way? I think it's really hard because clubs are different, and the amount of planning and rigor that goes in through some of those steps is different also. So I think it really depends, and I wish I had a better answer. There's a lot of ways you can go. I mean, professionally with corporate responsibility work, we have some one-page business plans for multi-million-dollar projects or community investments, and then we'll have 5 or 10 pages of something that's smaller. It really depends on where you're at and where you're trying to go.
So as a segue from that, we've gotten a couple questions, and one just came through now. Would you be willing to share an example of your club's plan? We've also had 2 or 3 more questions of, would you be willing to share your slides and any links or connections to some of the tools and the templates that you talked about tonight?
Yeah, so I know the links are out there. I'm happy to go through and grab those and put them in there, and I can PDF some of the slides that are in there, or I might even be able to send it either way. Yeah, I'm happy to share. I'm happy to share the work. You guys got to look at it for a few minutes. I spent many hours working on it. So please, by all means, I'm not keeping this proprietary by any means. So I'll connect with Brian to make sure everybody gets their stuff. And I guess to answer the question of what our club is working on right now, I'm happy to share that really briefly. And I'll just share it for just a sec, Brian, and then we'll go to any other questions before we wrap. We did a lot of these activities. We went through a ton of planning, right? And we didn't come out with this crazy plan with all these bells and whistles. We identified, this one might not be as up to date because that's wrong. Sharing our compelling story. So, focused on infrastructure and growth. And for me as president, one of my focuses was mental health and how we can be working with our service leadership programs, how we can be working with our volunteers to try to be allies and try to be supporters in that. Diversifying our membership, growing our membership and putting a goal in place there. So this is just a preview, and it's part of that slide deck that we also share. But again, this is one piece of it. That's just what we happen to be using right now at this time. And I hope that's not disappointing because it just seemed like one little thing, but this is where the board was going, and it's working. So.
And at least from my perspective, I don't know if everybody else agrees, it's nice to see a nice bite-sized digestible plan that has real teeth to it, but it's something that is realistic in what can be achieved. So I'm sorry we couldn't get to everybody's questions, but I think we're going to have to wrap up. But I have one that came in that I think is a really good place to leave it. Do you have any tips for inspiring club members outside of the board to want to get involved in the planning process and in your work plan?
Well, one of the first things that comes to mind is thinking about the particular member and if whoever sponsored that member is still a part of the club. Because if they brought them in and they have that relationship, you can always talk to that person, if you feel comfortable, say, hey, we're really trying to go in this direction. We really want to get this person involved. How would you suggest that we do that? I think the other thing is when you hear people talking about where do you want us to be? What do you see our goals to be? What do you want to get out of your Kiwanis experience? Where do you see this club in your Kiwanis experience and where we're going in the future? Do you envision us being stronger, raising more money, helping more kids, doing more projects? Yes. If so, okay, great. Well, since you're interested in want that, we need to roll up our sleeves and do work. Too many meetings are filled with too many speakers and eating lunch, and there's not enough working meetings where people are rolling up their sleeves and having planning sessions. So that was a big thing when I took over as president. We stopped doing speakers every single meeting because we needed to work. We needed to talk. When is the work being done? And when were those other committee meetings happening? They weren't. So that's what we did. We, not these ad hoc committees. We made club meetings working meetings. It took a break from some speakers here and there. So that could be another option that might not make people happy, but worked for me.
I saw a lot of head nods on that one. In agreement with you. So Joe, before we wrap up, do you have any parting thoughts or ideas or tips or anything you'd like to share with everybody tonight?
Jeez. Well, you guys are 25 sessions in, and Brian has shared that a number of you have been here and have been coming to these day in and day out. And I think a lot of that speaks to your passion and desire to better Kiwanis and prepare Kiwanis for the next, the next generation of kids to come. Keep working at it. Start talking amongst your group. If you guys are seeing yourselves there, set up a chat, set up a study group. Don't rely on your lieutenant governor to try to bring Kiwanis presidents or Kiwanis clubs together, because sometimes you'll have a lieutenant governor you'll never hear from ever. Take it upon yourselves and find those ways to make those connections. And if you don't have those connections, talk to the people and say, hey, I'm trying to talk with some other people. What's going on? Be proactive and don't always think about the old school Kiwanis hierarchy infrastructure and being reliant on that to get your information. And you can do this. Keep it up. Kiwanis, we're here. And I'm hoping that these shifts in technology and people coming back to being in person, it's a new opportunity to position Kiwanis as a convener, as a vehicle for service, not the end all be all. We have to do everything, but let's just be part of it. So that would be my closing thought.
Perfect place to leave it. Thank you so much, Joe. Everybody join me in a round of applause for Joe Lepper, our presenter tonight.
Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you all very much.
And we hope you'll be back again in the future. You've got a lot to share and a lot of really good tools and ideas. And what I loved, I hope you all took away tonight too, is that this kind of work and tips and tools can be applied to anything we do. It's not just Kiwanis, it can be our work with other boards or community groups or our workplaces or religious groups or any other organization might be part of. These tools are applicable on so many fronts. So thank you for sharing all this with us, Joe. So as we wrap up, please remember to type your name and your club in the chat if you haven't already. This will help us keep attendance each week. I got a message a couple minutes ago from our interclub liaison, Dave, who coordinates our attendance each week. We have 16 clubs represented tonight. So nice job to have so many people here. And a shout out to Rutland, who Dave believes is here and represented for the first time. So that's excellent to see. So we have 4 more workshops lined up for you for this month. So I'm going to ask Elise if she can pull up our schedule for the rest of June. Okay, so next week, June 9th, we'll have for you chartering SLP clubs. For those of you who may be new to Kiwanis, SLP stands for Service Leadership Programs, some of which you heard Joe talking about tonight: K-Kids, Builders Club, Key Club, CKI, Action Club. And our presenters next week will be Marianne Bellison, who's the District Administrator for New England CKI. We'll have Will Bradford, who's on with us tonight, who's the Key Club District Administrator. And we'll also have immediate past CKI District Governor Allison Lunny and immediate past Key Club Lieutenant Governor Ana Rodriguez. So we have a really great lineup of both students and Kiwanis members next week who will talk to you about chartering. The following week on June 16th, we will have using technology to organize your club. And we'll have tips and tricks on using platforms like Google Drive, Square, Venmo, and more for improving your club's communication and organization. On June 23rd, I'm particularly excited. I'll be leading a panel discussion about literacy-focused service projects. And we're going to highlight some really outstanding projects from all across New England and Bermuda that focus on reading and children's literacy. And you will definitely leave with something inspiring and ideas that you can bring into your own community. And that's on June 23rd. And our final workshop will be on June 29th. We'll be presenting how to build diverse community partnerships. And that week, we will host 2 Key Club members, actually, Harper Treshik and Jordan Stein from the Fairfield Ludlow High School Key Club in Fairfield, Connecticut. And they'll be talking about how their members worked with community organizations in shared service projects to help feed their community. They're going to provide resources, action steps, inspiration, and more, which will hopefully jumpstart your own community partnerships in your local area. Elise, as you can see, has dropped a link in the chat. So if any of these are sessions you haven't signed up for and would like to, or if you'd like to share the registration link with your club members, you can grab that right from the chat. Following these June workshops, we will provide officer training on Wednesday evenings beginning in July, and that will run Wednesdays in July and into early August. And we'll have the schedule available very soon. And once it's up, we'll ask for your help in making sure that all of your club's officers have the information about these free virtual trainings. We're hoping we'll reach folks all over the district by providing this virtually again this summer. Your next opportunity for Kiwanis education will be at the district convention, which, as many of you have heard, will be in person this summer. It's going to be August 20th to 22nd in Leominster, Massachusetts. And then beginning in September, our workshop series will move to once per month. So we hope you'll continue to join us through June and into July, and that you'll be back with us starting in September as we move forward on a monthly basis. As always, please encourage your fellow club members to join us for these Kiwanis education opportunities. You can find more information on our district Facebook page, in our district Facebook group, which I know many of you are a part of and post frequently in, and as always at newenglandkiwanis.org. We also have a playlist on YouTube, which Elise will drop in the chat, and you can go back and watch most of the recordings of all of our sessions as part of this workshop series going back to December. And we also have our workshops from our virtual district convention last August archived on YouTube as well. to access resources from any of our past workshops, and where we'll be dropping the resources from Joe from tonight's strategic planning discussion. Take a look at your confirmation email from this morning, and you'll find a link at the bottom that says virtual workshop materials. And that will take you to a Google Drive folder where we have all of our presentations and resources divided out by week. So you can take a look at each session. Elisa's also dropped a link in the chat if you want to head there now to do some exploring. I would like to, as always, give a big thank you to our District Education Committee members who are working behind the scenes to make these weekly workshops successful. Of course, we have Elise Denorfia, we have Judy Barrett and David Griffin. I hope you all join me in a round of applause. They're doing so many great things each week and helping to keep the momentum going. And with that, special thanks again to Joe for being our presenter tonight and to each of you for joining us this week. I really hope you leave not only with inspiration, but some concrete tactics and tools for how you can implement a strategic plan in your club. I hope you're all doing well. Please stay safe. And we will see you all next week for our session on chartering SLP clubs. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.